Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. We're live and Raphael Varane to Manchester United is almost done is the breaking news. We're also going to be talking about Rashford, Lingard, the goalkeeping situation. Maybe we'll even get a Sancho announcement. But I'm joined by Kev, Ricky, and we've got Kovu joining the show with us tonight. How you doing, pal?
Yeah, really good. Really happy to be here. Obviously, we had a chat on Tuesday.
Yeah, we did. I was on his radio station, found out he was a United fan, and we got him on. Ricky, how you doing?
Very well indeed, mate. Yeah,
good.
Gutted about Sunday's result, but been looking forward to this. I did say when you did a little round robin at the end, you asked for a prediction last Thursday, and I said Italy on pens.
Blame you then. Blame Ricky.
I wish you would have said 2-0 for England.
Kev, how you doing, mate?
Very well, mate. Looking forward to getting into this and discussing all things Manchester United. The Euros, really good. I'm missing that kind of fit to the Euros now. I didn't think I miss it that much, but at the height of it, 3 games a day and all that, really enjoyed it. Obviously not the outcome England fans would have wanted, but I suppose now we've got the new season to look forward to and talking mainly about Manchester United, which is great.
Yeah, well, we're going to get into Rashford in a bit of depth in a moment, but let me just hit the breaking news here. It's not that Sancho's been assigned. I don't know why. Don't know why that's not happened. We were just talking about that. Nobody knows why. No one's had any leak about it, so maybe it's going to be tomorrow now. But this is the big breaking news, and it revolves around Raphael Varane. And this is good news. I mean, at the end of the day, we know we've got Sancho. It's just a picture, isn't it, that we're waiting for. Manchester United and Raphael Varane have almost reached a contractual agreement. Discussions are advanced between the two parties. Discussions are open between United and Real Madrid. There hasn't been an offer yet as they battle for the price. That's from Mohamed MUFC, who is a very good French outlet. And then also from Jorge Calabres through Madrid Extra, they're saying that Raphael Varane has decided to go to Manchester United. United will make a formal offer in the coming days. If the offer is around 50 million euros, which is about 40 million pounds, Varane will become a United player in the coming days. The deal is closer than it's ever been. We're back singing it again. Closer than close. Closer than you can ever imagine. We're close. This is exciting. And we'll start off with you, Kovu, on this as a debutant. What are your thoughts on Raphael Varane to Manchester United? Is it needed a centre-back? Come on.
I think, obviously, there are a few positions that need addressing. But when you look, I think the best thing to look at is how Maguire performed in the World Cup. If you put someone genuinely competent next to him, how different a player he suddenly looks. And I feel Varane will kind of fill those boots. Obviously, Varane's kind of got a bit more of a kind of finesse about him as an actual player, a little bit of pace about him as well. He definitely fits into that mold of what works next to Harry Maguire, I feel. He definitely gives Harry Maguire that extra bit of support. Again, it allows you to be a bit more creative in the middle because you're not constantly having to hold back in case the ball goes through. I think if it's a signing that actually happens and it doesn't end up spending days and days and days and weeks and weeks and weeks actually going through, I think if it's doable for the amount they're talking, I think it's a brilliant signing. Purely because if you were looking at signing Varane maybe 3 or 4 years ago, like the figures being thrown around was like 60, 70 mil. I think if we can actually pull it off for that amount, it's the sort of signing that kind of says clever, but also says it's the sort of player that instantaneously fills the boots. It's not a player that you're buying for the potential value. And I feel there's always been a kind of thing of buying players for potential with United for the last sort of 6 or 7 years. It's what they could turn into. Varane is essentially the finished article. And I feel if you are genuinely going to push forward, that suddenly turns that back line into a very formidable looking back line.
Definitely. And I think clever's not a word we'd normally announce next to Manchester United, Kev. Kev, in relation to this, I tweeted it before I even went live. I said, look, with Varane, you can get as soon as you become a United player, you're no good. He's going to be the French Ben White before he kicks a ball. But for me, he is Van Dijk's his only equal. How good a centre back do you think we're getting with Varane, and how excited are you about this deal if and when it happens?
In terms of potential, he's already there. He's a world-class centre back. Now, you've just mentioned Ben White. We can say Arsenal are pissing around trying to sign Ben White for 50 million. So we're talking a similar kind of fee to getting Varane.
It'll be cheaper, actually. I think it'll be cheaper.
Yeah, well, if you're dealing with euros or whatever, it will actually be cheaper than Ben White, which, fair enough. Listen, if United get this deal over the line, it's a statement of intent from Manchester United, and it certainly shows that the structure of the club, the way it's being run, and these transfer dealings have definitely sort of we've gone past that tipping point of where we were like, this is just absolutely ridiculous. Because I read something today, right? And Varane earns 6 million a season at Real Madrid. Phil Jones earns 6.6 million at Manchester United a year. Now, if we're talking, if you even put them, I can't believe I've just mentioned him in the same breath, right? Because Varane and Phil Jones are two total different animals. And you just made a great point there before about the fact that Harry Maguire has had an absolute brilliant Euros. And we know that if you put a decent centre-half, i.e. John Stones, next to him, it makes Harry Maguire look even better. Harry Maguire has been babysitting the likes of Lindelof, even Eric Bailly to an extent when he comes in at Manchester United. I do like Eric Bailly, but long-term, if United can secure Varane and you put him inside, next to Harry Maguire, we are set up. We are back in play, because left back and right back, not an issue at Manchester United. Varane coming in, no-brainer. Pay the money. If he's interested, we get him. But at the same time, I've got that skepticism where I'm like, please don't do what Sergio Ramos did that year. Please don't piss us about and at the last minute sign a new, contract with Real Madrid. But as it stands, all the rumours at the rumour mill, there's no smoke without fire. This one does seem like it could happen. And I'm very, very, very excited about it.
Definitely. And Ricky, we spoke about this, I know, a couple of times, so I don't want to dwell on what your thoughts are on Raphael Varane. But in a wider sense, Sancho comes in, Varane comes in. We're still only in the middle of July. Obviously, the new kit's out today. Some fans are like saying Glazer's out and everything. But is this the sort of level of intent you'd say that United are looking to go to that next level? We finish second next year, and does that excite you?
It's definitely exciting that they're going down this route. It's definitely exciting, but I'm a bit too long in the tooth to get overexcited myself. I want to see these players gel. I want to see them operating in the Premier League, operating with new teammates in a different environment. Hopefully, they both play as well as people seem to think that they can play. I mean, Varane, just going by his CV, you don't need to watch him play. He's got to be a top performer. So if they come in and operate like they do, I'll be excited once I've seen that. I don't get excited beforehand like so many fans do.
Yeah, defo. We're going to talk about, so that's the latest with Varane. As I said just there, very excited about that deal coming in. But I want to start off with you, Ricky, on this one, because I think one of the big things, I want to talk about Lingard a little bit. Actually, let's start off with Lingard, and then we're going to talk about Rashford. So Jesse Lingard, not part of any of the photos we've seen in training, not part of any of the photos for the kit. This has been made a big deal of today. I suppose it's because Jesse normally would be involved in all that sort of thing. The latest with Lingard is that there's no decision been made, that Manchester United are a little bit maybe peeved by that, maybe put out by that, which is maybe why he's not involved in the photos, etc. at the moment, because he hasn't made the decision about his future. There was even a talk about a swap deal with Trippier to Atletico Madrid, which just sounds crazy to me. But Jesse Lingard, Ricky, is it time for him to move on, or would would you like him to stay at the club for another year or two and sign a new deal?
We were speaking last week about the number of attacking options that we've got. And we didn't. I don't think we even probably mentioned Jesse Lingard last week. We've just got too many attacking options, and I think we've already got too many. And I think it's time for Jesse to move on myself. When you said, I can't remember exactly what phrase you used, but you talked about it as if it was a bit of a joke that we might swap him for Trippier. Do you mean a joke that I might take Lingard, or a joke that we might give Lingard for Trippier? Because I'd take Trippier all day long, mate. I think he's a quality player.
No, yeah, I think just because I don't think Jesse would fancy going to Spain, really, and I don't think Atletico Madrid would fancy that type of a player.
I agree with that. Yeah, 100%. It'd be a tricky one trying to get that over the line. Lingard for Trippier.
Yeah, I mean, Kovu, what's your thoughts on Lingard? Because he had a fantastic season for West Ham, but as Ricky says there, I did a show on 2 nights ago, and basically we've got 26 senior players before you even talk about Diallo, Brandon Williams. At the end of the day, it's probably a case of beggars can't be choosers. If you've got someone who somebody else wants, it's probably we probably could do with getting rid of 8 players. Would Jesse be one of those, or do you think actually he's better than some of the deadwood that we've got?
I think in an attacking sense, It's really simple. Does he start over Van der Beek or in that more attacking position? No. Does he start over Fernandes? No. Which puts him realistically at the third choice option. How often are we going to be needing a third choice option in a central attacking midfield role, which is realistically where he's going to play? I think he had a great time when he went to West Ham. I think that realistically was because the pressure disappeared from what he had at United. He's constantly under pressure at United. Obviously, he's grown up with the club. It's like a part of him, and you can kind of see there's that level with him where he wants to make it work. He wants to be like a part of the club's success. But realistically, I think that he's had kind of a wonder season with us once before under Jose, I think it was. He then had a great season, and it looked very reminiscent, just kind of controlling games, picking it up and taking it away. But I don't think currently that's likely to happen in a United shirt again. When you kind of look at the kind of era that he kind of came through and became that suddenly that wonder kid out of nowhere, even though he was like 26, 27, it looked like he was a wonder kid. It was almost
still a wonder kid.
Yeah, he'll be a wonder kid till he's about 35, realistically. But with the whole kind of thing with that was the inconsistency that he showed either side of that, and I feel it almost epitomised that period of United, which was inconsistency. The fact that Lingard was starting and was and still is quite an inconsistent player on the grand scale of things. He almost is kind of the epitome of that. So I think it's quite a brave move, realistically, for United to maybe move him on, take the, 25, 30 mil is the sort of figure I'm sort of hearing whenever I look online for it. If you could get 25 to 30 mil for him, that does cover the majority of the Varane deal. When you think about it like that. So that's a swap. It's essentially a swap deal to an extent. That's one that I would take every single day. And I think he's just unlikely to get game time. He's likely to be a bench warmer, maybe play Carling Cup games. It's not really what he wants to be doing. He wants to be playing first team football, maybe eventually pushing for an England setup again. I don't think it benefits him staying, and I don't think it benefits United with him staying either. So apart from, as you said, sort of sponsorship related stuff and shirt and sort of shirt signings and being a kind of presence and a personality, we don't really need personalities at the moment. We need consistent, solid players, I feel. So,
yeah, there's someone in the chat there, I think it was Deirdre, saying you can't be consistent if you don't play, but if you're not consistent, you don't get picked. I mean, for me, Lingard, yeah, I agree with Ricky and Coville. For me, he goes. Kev, are you going to make that a full house? I mean, for me, he goes as well, just to add in that I think it's the best move for him. You know, West Ham nearly got him in the Euros. Being a bench player for United, you've got no chance. So I think it's best for him. What was your thoughts, Kev?
Can't disagree with any of you. I mean, before his move to West Ham, I think a lot of us on the United stand basically went down the route of he needs to get out of Old Trafford for the sake of his career. Now, the form that he showed at West Ham surprised us all. You know, there was probably United fans on social media called, bring him back. There's a space here. For me, that's gone now. And from Man United's point of view, the only thing about Jesse Lingard's really impressive form for West Ham is that he's probably put another 10 million on what he was worth prior to actually going to West Ham. And we can always say that Manchester United, if they're interested in Declan Rice, and West Ham do want Jesse Lingard and they want it, to sign him permanently, we've kind of got that little deal breaker that you can sort of hold against them, a bargaining chip, if you want to call it. But I don't see a future for him at Manchester United. I know he's come out in the press. He's saying the right things. He wants to get back into the squad. He wants to be at Manchester United and that. But long term, for the sake of his career, and it sounds awful as well, maybe he found his level at West Ham. Yeah. When he's at Manchester United, he's not the main man. We've got the likes of Fernandes, Pogba, Martial, all these great individual players. At West Ham, he really did stand out. And that's no disrespect against West Ham. I'm just saying he was more or less the main man at West Ham. So,
yeah,
I wish him well.
No, yeah, I agree. And I think, I said it before. I mean, 28. He's 28. He's not. We all think of him as a young lad. He's 28. And I remember Phil Neville going to Everton and Nicky Butt going to Newcastle. It's not even about finding your level. It's about getting to play first team football at the age where you're probably not going to get in the team anymore. So, look, I think if Jesse's got anything about him, and I don't mean it in a bad way, I just think if he wants to be playing football and winning Barclays Premier League, it's not even Barclays anymore, is it? That's how old I am. Premier League Player of the Month and getting in the England squad, then he's got to move on. We're going to move on. I'm very excited about this. Me and Ricky have been meaning to talk about this for a few weeks, and by missing it, we've probably caught the perfect time because he's now going to be having an operation for 3 months. Obviously missed that penalty for England. He's apparently had this injury for 8 months, which has probably, some would say, had him not been able to sprint properly. I think we've seen a real lack of. He used to track back and help Luke Shaw, and he's not been doing that for a while. Marcus Rashford. Ricky, we'll start with you because I know we've been meaning to talk about it for a while. What? It's such a quick. I might just say Marcus Rashford, go ahead, because I don't even know how to phrase this. He's out for 3 months. I suppose the first thing, let's talk about the injury. Is that good news for United? Because there is this whole: is he injured? Is he? Is it been impacting on? What are your thoughts about Rashford at the moment?
Well, the injury. We just spoke a little bit earlier when you mentioned Jesse Lingard, and I said we've got too many attacking players, and it can give the manager headaches. So as much as I'm not a Rashford fan, even if I was a Rashford fan, it could be a bonus for the manager. It's okay having lots and lots of options, but you can have too many options, I think. And when you want to try and give players a run in the team, or just make somebody one game, it can upset the flow. We need to, I said this last week, we need to get off on the front foot. We need to win our first 4, 5, 6 games, or at least win 1 and draw 1 out of, win 5 and draw 1 out of the first 6. We've got to be right up there if we're going to do it. And I believe you've got more chance of doing that if you pick your best team. You decide, whatever you decide is your best team, stick with it, and stick with it at least for 5 or 6 games and try and get a bit of, the camaraderie going, the teamwork going, try and get some points on the board, to have a good start. Now, Marcus Rashford might be in his lineup. I'd be honest, he wouldn't be in my lineup, but at least if he's not there, somebody else has got to fill that role. Now, we spoke about Pogba last week. Pogba's been playing wide left. We said this, it's going to be McTominay and Fred, I'm sure of it, and it's going to be Bruno. So Pogba could be playing wide left if he's still there, doesn't leave. So Pogba, Martial's probably going to be fit. Martial could play wide left. It's going to be Cavani up top. It's going to be Sancho to the right. There's one spot open. We could do without chopping and changing that spot. We could do with Cavani gelling with Martial or gelling with Pogba, whoever he decides to pick there, and stick with it. And one less. Imagine if you've got Rashford, Martial and Pogba all for one spot. It's no good, I don't think. It's no good. It's too many.
Would you, just before I get the other lads' opinion, would you, we know Rashford's now going to have this operation. Who would you put out on that left-hand side? Because there's you like Martial, you like Dan James. Dan James, I think, is a better player off the left, even though I wouldn't pick him. But also Pogba. Would you just go with Martial?
I would probably go with Martial, yeah. I mean, Pogba's done a decent job there, but he's not a natural left winger. I think Martial, whether he plays at 9, probably more so on the left wing, he's more of a natural. I would go with Martial. I'd start the season with Sancho on the right, Cavani at 9. I'm assuming Martial's fit, by the way. He was unfit for the Euros. I don't know if you've read anything. I don't think he's back in training yet, but he looked all right on holiday. But, right. So if Martial's fit, I'd start with Martial on the left if Rashford's missing. Well, I'd do that anyway if Rashford was fit. But obviously, if he's missing, it gives him a great chance, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, there you go. We're not finished on the Rashford debate. I think we'll go around a couple of times on this. But Kovu, new on the show. Where do you stand on Marcus Rashford? I mean, look, I suppose I can ask you a more general question, because he is a divider in our community, in the fan base as well. Some people just won't have the injury excuse. You're either fit or you're not, and if you're not fit, you shouldn't be playing. I think it was even Henry Winter said today about put a tweet out about, Rashford's just wanted to play for England and help them out, and he played through the barrier. And the replies were full of, well, sorry, it's not like we haven't got loads of other players that could play. I mean, you're either fit or you're not fit. You don't win a medal for just being a hero. And then Henry Winter was sort of having to answer it in a way which was, not very, very convincing. My personal stance is I think he's injured, and I think he should have been managed better. He's a young lad. But I think he's a fantastic player. But unfortunately, I can't give that evidence because I don't think he's at his best. But there are people who think he's actually a bit overrated. Where do you stand?
I think, again, it's the inconsistency. There was a period about a year and a half, 2 years ago, where he started to really hit that stride. You could see there is a top class player in Rashford. I don't think anyone denies that there is a top player there, but it's something to do with the mindset, something to do with the decision making, where sometimes strange little things happen, and you're just like, why have you done that and not done that? Just from watching from a fan's perspective, and you can kind of see it. I think you can tell he's been playing with an injury. As you said, he hasn't looked as mobile as he used to look. He isn't taking players on as much. He isn't beating players. And you can tell that injury's there. I don't necessarily think he actually should have been in the squad for the World Cup, purely because you can tell he's been injured for a while. You can just tell in his body language. You never see him, whenever you see him actually walking around the pitch, i.e., again, walking rather than jogging a lot of the time, you can see him wincing, literally wincing as he walks. And it's such a bizarre thing to me that he was never actually, like, that sort of World Cup period for me is like the perfect time to kind of have that sort of operation and that extra time out to be recovering for the time you come back. I think the goals he scored this season, do to an extent maybe mask some of the inconsistency we see. I think if we're talking about natural finishers at the club, I think Martial is leagues ahead of him in regards to natural finishing. I think Cavani's leagues ahead of him in regards to natural finishing. I actually think Sancho's ahead of him in natural finishing. But he is a natural left winger. I don't think you can ever play him through the middle. I think he is the definition of what a left winger should be, the way he moves when he's fit. I definitely do think he's overrated, and obviously he is involved with a lot of things outside of Manchester United. Now he is a public figure. He is a figure that genuinely, it looks like he's moving society in a good direction. So you can't, you obviously don't want to take that away. But on the pitch, there has been inconsistencies for quite a long time. And I think when you see what the play, I think more than anything else, the reason United fans get frustrated a lot of the time is because they see the player he could be. They see there is a player there. But it's just bizarre decision-making a lot of the time. And whether that's to do with injuries, not wanting to go past people and take 50-50s, not wanting to do the extra bit of running, not wanting to kind of maybe push a bit harder and maybe try something a little bit different. He always seems to, a lot of the time he seems to make an obvious wrong decision from a forward's perspective. And I don't know how much the injury plays into that. There's definitely a top-class player in there. I get slated on my timeline a lot of the time for basically saying, why has he done that? Why has he done that? Why has he done that? And it's more than anything, it's frustration, because you can see the talent is there. The way he strikes a ball sometimes, the way he can beat people, you can see those elements of like top class, almost CR7 in his younger days kind of esque, the way he kind of moves. And it's just frustration at the inconsistency, I feel, a lot of the time for United fans. For me, and me personally anyway.
It's interesting, Kev, because there's a lot of people, I'm reading the chat while I'm listening in here, and I saw a few people saying Ollie doesn't coach him well enough. If you gave him to Pep, you'd find out what a good player he is. Well, you know, local lad, I'm just talking about you, but Rashford's a local lad as well. Where do you sit on Rashford, and what do you think he's got to do? This is a good question. What do you think he's got to do to hit that thing? Because I actually remember putting a tweet out a couple of years ago, and his management are on Twitter, and it was something like, I said something like, Rashford should not be in the same conversation as Ronaldo. And I got a reply from his management Twitter account, and I was like, ooh, that's a little bit, you know, I've obviously hit a nerve there. And what I said is, I like Rashford, you know, watch the United stand, I do like him, but I'm not having him compared to Ronaldo. I'm not having that. You know, if he's going to do that, he's got to do a lot of things for me. What about for you? How does, you know, what's Rashford got to do? Because he's definitely in he gets treated because of the brilliant things he does off the pitch and the talent he is. He does get mentioned in that, but then there's a lot of United fans who just don't believe he's on that level. You get people saying he's no better than Nani. So what is it with Rashford for you? Is it just a rest?
I would start by saying I think it's very harsh to say that he's overrated. I don't see Rashford as being overrated, but I will say towards the end of last season, I'm certainly not going to sit and defend him and say that he was fantastic. What we can say is that he was definitely playing through an injury. Now, as a club over country guy, which is going to sound very selfish, I'm highly annoyed that he's actually going in for this operation now, because this was well documented before the Euros that he needed this operation. So he's obviously thought, no, I'm going to go to the Euros. So from a United perspective, we're now going to miss him until probably October. So from that perspective, I'm like, but the one that softens it for me is the signing of Jadon Sancho. And like Ricky's mentioned, there's a hell of a lot of attacking talent there that you're going to be trying to fit into certain positions. And what is your strongest 11? Now, on current form, for me, Rashford would not be in there. Jadon Sancho softens a blow because he comes in. And this sounds really, really bad. But the fact that he is now going for this operation could be a blessing in disguise for Solskjaer in a way, because it gives us time at the start of the season to bed in Sancho. And then when Rashford finally gets back up to speed, he's back in not straight back into the team. He will have to fight to get back into this team. I will say as well, I've not had me say, the people that defaced the memorial of Rashford, absolutely classless, right? And I know there's United fans and that bang on and say, oh, if he was good on the pitch as he was at feeding kids and all this shit. It's two separate things, right? For me, Rashford is a young lad. He's a role model, and he's done fantastic things for children of Wythenshawe, right? And the people that decided to do that just don't get it. Absolute senseless, just absolute clowns. From that point, like I say, there will be people who will say, oh, he needs to stop doing this. He needs to start playing football on the field. For me, he can juggle the two of them. He'll always be, a legend for what he does. But at the same time, yes, we want to see him kick on. But for me, injuries have hindered him. And you make the comparison there, Mark. Sorry, you said about Cristiano Ronaldo. The comparison I would make with Rashford is his final decision making. When Ronaldo first come to United, once he actually clicked, stopped the step overs, all that shit, there's cutting back. Once he actually got the final thought process right, and that's where I think Rashford is so close. If he can just get that final ball, final pass, that decision, should I shoot? No, I'll give it out wide, this, that. Once that actually clicks, Rashford will be unstoppable.
It's interesting you say that, because I was going to ask you, Ricky, what do you think the future is for Rashford? Because what effectively I think Kev's saying there is he just lacks that sort of final development of a footballer, that final intelligence, which I have always said that Dan James just totally lacks football intelligence. He just gets his head down and runs and has a shot. You're a big fan of Dan James. So is Rashford not in that situation whereby he can be, one of Ricky's favourites, or do you just think he hasn't? What is it that makes you? I suppose the question is, what is it that makes you doubt Rashford? That's the insight.
Positional sense on the field is better. Dan James gives the team. I've spoke about this dozens and dozens of times, and people get fed up when we're talking about team shape. We've won 3 of the last 4 league derbies with Dan James playing in the team. Not many teams beat City 3 times out of 4 in the league. Dan James played in the 3 games, the 3 victories. He didn't play in the draw, but he played in the 3 victories. The team shape, the work rate, being behind the ball in advance of them coming forward rather than chasing back, being proactive rather than reactive. I'm not talking about on the ball and being clever with the ball. I'm talking about tactics and team shape. And you spoke about football intelligence. Dan James has got football intelligence for me in abundance. He knows where to be on the field in certain moments. Now, getting back to Marcus, we spoke about the England squad. Why was he in the England squad? I know Kev's upset about him being there and now needing to have this operation. But if you look at the England team, obviously Kane was always starting at 9, so Marcus was behind him. He came on as a sub once for Harry Kane. I was stunned that it wasn't Calvert-Lewin that came on for Harry Kane. Don't tell me you wouldn't have Calvert-Lewin in front of Marcus as a number 9. But anyway, that's the manager's decision. He brought Marcus on as a sub for Harry Kane in 1 game. I'd have brought Calvert-Lewin on. But we started the tournament with Foden and Sterling on the flanks. To me, Marcus doesn't get in there. And then Grealish got a game. Saka got a game. Even Sancho got 1 start. 5 different players started in the wide attacking berths. 5. Marcus didn't start 1 game. Now, did he not start 1 game because he was injured? Because if he didn't start because he was injured, then surely he shouldn't be in the squad. So can we try and put that to one side? Let's sort of say, look, he must have been fit to play. Why would they take him in the squad if he wasn't fit to play? I know Harry Maguire, they were expecting him to get fit, and he got fit and played. You wouldn't take a player who's not fit and then not play him and not expect him to be fit because they knew he was going to have this operation. So forget the injury. You know, they knew it. If they knew he wasn't fit and he was going to have this operation, and because of that fitness, they wasn't going to use him. Now, they didn't use him because Foden's a better player, because Grealish is a better player, because Sterling's a better player, because they've got Sancho and Saka, who both played well when they played. He's sixth choice for England. Sixth choice.
You do think about it there, though, don't you, Ricky? Because you do think, well, it can't have been a surprise to Southgate.
Then to bring him on to take a penalty when he's sixth choice starter as a wide player.
Well, specialist penalty taker, apparently. But I just think that, you know, I agree with Kev. I think that this is a player that's a United player first and foremost. And if you are sixth choice player and you're carrying an injury, why is Ollie not speaking to Southgate and saying, look, at the end of the day, is he going to win you the Euros? Are you going to use him ahead of these players? And if the answer's no, then I don't want him there. But it's like, who's got the power? Who's got the power?
As United fans now, and on that, I don't want anybody to say, well, it's a different style, it's different this, it's different that. Just yes or no answers, right? Would you rather have Grealish, Foden, or Rashford? Put them in order, because I know Rashford would be third for me.
So who would you have first? Go on then, we'll do it as panellists in the chat.
Probably. It's a right tough one. I actually like the way Grealish plays. I just said you can't say all this.
You're not going to argue. I thought you were going to argue about Rashford there. You're going to argue about Grealish and Foden, aren't you, for 5 minutes?
I'll just go Foden, Grealish, Rashford. That's how I'd go. Foden first, then Grealish, then Rashford.
All right, Kofi, quickly, what would you go with?
What, for England, left choice, front
No,
three?
out of those three, how would you rank them?
Those
Foden,
three.
Grealish and Rashford.
Grealish, Foden, Rashford. But that's in an England shirt, and I think it's a different job in an England shirt to what Rashford would be doing at United.
Kev?
Yeah, do you know what? I agree with Ricky. Foden, Grealish, Rashford. But again, that's nothing against Rashford.
It's just how good those players are.
It's exactly.
It's United. We want the best. We want the best.
Rashford, I tell you what, Rashford 18 months ago, before he had the back injury, I'm putting him ahead of Foden and Grealish. But 18 months ago, Foden and Grealish weren't as good as they are now. So form always comes into it. If you're giving me Rashford at his best, I'll change the form. I'll change the order. But I can't argue with any of you there. It's Grealish or Foden ahead of Rashford at the moment because they are better than he is at the moment. But I can't forget what he was like 18 months ago. And I got pelters for saying he's up there with Neymar as one of the best wingers in the world because he was brilliant just before Christmas in 2000. And God, I lose the years because of COVID. But I think it was 2019. He was brilliant before that back injury, but he has got to get over his injury woes. And then I think it's a big season ahead for him. And it'll be very interesting to see how he, whether we can get that Rashford back, because there's no guarantees that we will, but hopefully we will do. There was a question in there, Kovu, and it's a first one for you. And actually, I don't think we've ever. I can't remember. We probably haven't. We probably have spoke to Ricky about it. But on the Paul Pogba situation, being a newbie on the show, somebody did ask earlier: do you think Varane staying at the club will influence Pogba to stay at the club? Do you think that? And also, with 1 year left on his contract and rumored 400k a week being offered to him, is it time to say no and let him go after 5 years, or is he that important to us that you desperately want Pogba to stay?
I think when you look at when United are playing well, Pogba's playing well. I think 9 times out of 10, when you look at the better United performances, Pogba has played well in those performances. And I think when you're looking at kind of like almost like landmark players, when Pogba and Ibrahimovic came in, I immediately thought at that point, okay, we're making moves here. And then it sort of stuttered, it slowed down. He didn't have the start that he was supposed to have. But we saw in the Euros the player that Paul Pogba actually is when he has the right players around him. But you constantly hear this thing of, oh, they've spent this much to try and unlock him. I don't actually think United have spent that much to try and unlock him. They've bought players in an attacking position and a defensive position, but the midfield around him is still Fred and Scott McTominay, which, in my honest opinion, McTominay isn't a CDM. He's a more attack-minded player. All of his best moments happen when he's going forward. It usually is bursting into the box or scoring like 40-yard pingers or whatever it is. And Fred is, for me, a box-to-box ball winner. He's not a central defensive midfielder who kind of just sits behind. If you were to, and the best example of this is with Kante in that French team. If you have a player like Kante, a certified defensively minded midfielder who can move the ball forward, it does free up Pogba and it allows him to do the wondrous stuff that Pogba was doing. He was the best player in that French team this summer, without a shadow of a doubt. If Mbappe was able to finish, he would have probably been player of the tournament. That for me, that's like a written on very, very clear thing. I think in regards to keeping him at United, I think they have to keep. I think they have, if they can keep hold of him and the money's there to do it. I think he is without a doubt, when he's at his best, one of the best players in the world. I don't think that's up for real question. I think we saw that in the Euros. I think if they can keep hold of him, I think if Varane coming in is another reason for him to stay. I think Sancho coming in is another reason for him to stay. I think the problem Pogba's always had, if there's been a problem with the club, is that the club aren't showing enough intent to actually push to that next level. He wants to win trophies. He has a global brand. He is one of these players that you look at and go, would he get into most teams on his best day? On his best day, yes, he gets into near enough the majority of teams in the world. And I think if you can get the team to a level that kind of works around him, I think he is the player you're supposed to build around. Obviously, Fernandes will have off days. Rashford will have off days. Cavani's not going to be there forever. We will need another centre forward at some point if Greenwood doesn't progress and become that player. I think players always have off days, and almost too much goes into the fact that he isn't 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 every single game, because a Pogba sort of 6 or 7 out of 10, the majority of the time, is better than a lot of people's like 8 or 9 out of 10s, if that makes sense. Like, I think keeping Pogba at the club is essential to me. I think he attracts other big players in. I think he has that global appeal to him. I think Varane coming in is something that will make him more likely to stay. But if they can keep him there, yeah, obviously I think they should keep him there. I think you should try and keep top-class players there on a very basic level.
Would you pay him 450k a week to do that if he said that's what it's going to take? £22 million a year?
If the money's there, then I have no qualms with it whatsoever. I mean, what were we paying Sanchez? What are we paying De Gea at the moment? Like, it's
not far off, yeah.
Yeah, so I think there's the comparisons are there, and often when you kind of make big money signings, I mean, the best example of this you can look at is what's Griezmann on at Barca, like, and you look at that as a kind of staple for it. You look at some of the money that the big players are on. I think, honestly, though, on a very, very basic level, if the club has the money to do it, then do it 100%. If it's going to cause disruption, then you need to look at it slightly differently, obviously, and you need to look at that more specifically when it happened, rather than going, it doesn't matter if it causes disruption, do whatever. I honestly think, though, the signing of a top-quality CDM means you get world-class Paul Pogba. Someone like an Ndidi, someone like a Bissouma from Brighton, someone along those lines who just holds behind. And to be honest, the best I've seen Pogba in a United shirt is when he had Matic just sitting behind him a lot of the time. There was a period of time, I think it was during Ollie's, I can't remember when it was, I think it was during the end, just after the first lockdown, and the football started on again. We played a game of like 12, 13 games where we looked unbelievable. And that was when Matic was sitting behind Pogba. And you saw what Pogba was able to do. He was dictating play. He was pretty much controlling every game. And I think that's kind of what you need. If you want to get the best out of Pogba, you do have to kind of... It's almost like dealing with VIPs and dealing with like pushy top-end customers. You kind of have to meet their needs. And if you meet their needs, they'll give you what you need.
Kev, you've always been a bit hit and miss on Pogba. It's not a question of whether he'll go himself, but the question, I suppose, is Varane... staying. If Varane comes, do you think that'll be enough to keep Pogba here? And if that is the case, is that something that pleases you? Because there are fans out there that just think, nah, 5 years, move on. But it's what you're left with behind if Pogba goes, if he's not replaced.
I think it's definitely a statement, and I do think that they're trying to pull the stops out for Pogba. I mean, you mentioned there 400k a week, right? Which works out to, let's say it's over a 5-year period, which is roughly about 96 million. So if we look at it in terms of that, if we let Paul Pogba walk away for free, we get nothing for him and he's gone. Now that player to me has to be replaced. So you're going to have to spend 96 million to recoup and get a player similar to Paul Pogba. So to me, the money doesn't matter. It's there. And Paul Pogba to Manchester United is the pin-up boy. He's commercial asset to Manchester United, as well as one of the best players at Manchester United, technically. If he drinks Melita coffee, the Pogba fanboys, they go and buy it. If he drives a Chevrolet or whatever, we're not sponsored by them anymore, but,
he logs on to TeamViewer.
Exactly. Well, there we go with a new one, yeah. But you get me drift. Pogba, to United is a commercial asset as well. And it pains me to say that because we should be here speaking about football. But technically, Paul Pogba, no doubt about it. You know, he has been really well, or played really well at Manchester United in stages. If you can keep him, if you have to pay him 400k a week, you go and do it. Manchester United's fault, the main criticism of mine is that the old saying, you lie down with dogs, you get fleas, right? And they did that with Raiola when they brought Paul Pogba back to Manchester United. Lots of United fans happy about it and that, but we knew this day would come. And if he is allowed to walk away from Manchester United for free for the second time, it's a total injustice, honestly, so as the club's run. Maybe the club already know this, and that's why they're pulling the stops out for Varane. They hopefully bring in Sancho, which should be announced soon. Maybe they're looking at that and thinking, well, we can soften the blow of Pogba going by starting to bring in, you know, a few new players. But if he is allowed to walk away for free, which I said well before Christmas, I think that's what's going to happen. And Raiola will be in his ear and saying, you just sit tight. You know, we're in this, living through these times where there's not much money about in football. You know, it'd be some signing if the likes of PSG or Real Madrid or someone can pick him up for free. And we've only seen what PSG have done this week. You know, the free signings on, you know, free transfers. Great bit of business.
Who have they brought in? They've brought in Donnarumma, they've brouut in Ramos and Wijnaldum all on frees, haven't they?
Yep.
And Hakimi as well. Well, I think they paid for Hakimi.
They paid for Hakimi, but those three as free signings, that's in, like, again, how many clubs do those players just fit straight into? You've got a Euros winner there. You've got who was the other one? You've got obviously Sergio Ramos, not the player he was, but still a top quality centre back. And then you've got Wijnaldum, who again looked like the cog in that Holland team. He often is the cog in that Holland team. And Liverpool haven't kind of looked the same in the middle since he's not been firing on all cylinders. So it's ridiculous business from PSG.
It is. And I think that, well, that for me is that's why I think that if United pulled off Camavinga and Varane, they're both very astute deals as well, because they've got 1 year left on their contract. Ricky, reminds me your stance on Paul Pogba. I mean, if we were to lose him, is that a big blow to you? There are certain players I always forget, and I firmly remember what you think about Matic and James and Martial. But where do you sit on Paul Pogba as a player? Would you be massively bothered if he left, or is he?
I wouldn't be massively bothered for the simple reason that the manager doesn't pick him every week, does he? In his favour, he tends to mess around with the team a little bit and shoehorn him in here and there. Like I've just said, he's playing on the left wing against numerous times. He's played on the left wing, hasn't he? Numerous times. One game. Was it City at Old Trafford? I think he played on the right wing. We've tried with the diamond, with him playing slightly out of position against Arsenal at Old Trafford. He played like left-hand side of a diamond, but was it Bellerin that was causing murders? He ended up on the left wing anyway, even though it was supposed to be a diamond, because he was trying to block Bellerin. So, as you were talking about there, for France, he plays next to Kante, and it's set in stone how he play and what position he play, and that's the best positions for those players. Now, I'm not saying these are my choices. I'm speaking now about what the manager does. The manager goes with McTominay and Fred. That's more or less set in stone. Although he did drop Fred for the UEFA Cup tie final, which stunned me, by the way. That might be a sign. Well, let's be honest. It didn't go great, did it? We drew, didn't we? And lost on pens. So you know, he dropped Fred for that game, and he put Pogba in his supposedly best position for that game. Now, whether that's something that we can look forward to next season, I don't know. I doubt it somehow. I think the manager said after the game he wanted to fit Greenwood in, he wanted to fit Rashford in, and to do all that, he decided to drop Pogba a little bit deeper. Really, it was about fitting both Greenwood and Rashford in the team. That's why he dropped Pogba a little bit deeper. By the mere fact that he said that, I think we'll be starting off with McTominay and Fred. Bruno will be at 9. Cavani will be Bruno will be at 10, Cavani will be at 9, Sancho will be on the right. There's one space available, and that space available on the left wing. Look, no matter who he is, no matter how valuable he is, no matter what his name is a player who's not getting into our team in his best position, and we might, in the season, shoehorning him into the team again on the left wing, whereas if he's fit, I'd rather have Anthony Martial there anyway. It's a conundrum.
I think he's spot on.
I think the sign, right, if United get Varane over the line, I think this breaks up McTominay and Fred big time. because you do not need them two so-called holding midfielders, the babysitters for the back line. I think if you bring Varane in, he's experienced, what I would class a world-class centre-back. You play in with Harry Maguire. We've got Luke Shaw, Wan-Bissaka. For me, that back line, spot on.
Defensively, it's as good as it gets.
As good as any in the Premier League. You know, probably arguably maybe Man City or something. But apart from that, it changes the dynamics of the team totally. You know, Pogba could then get into, even if he wants to play in front of them two, as long as he's got the right player next to him, like you say, Ricky, Kante, best in the business. You know, you always hear when he goes to play for France, Paul Pogba turns up. And apparently it's because he's allowed to roam and do his business because Kante is that good. He does, you know, all the work in behind him and stuff. The easy, you know, simple stuff. Kind of stuff that Michael Carrick used to do for United.
Yeah. I agree with what you said, Ricky. I think that at the end of the day, we're all talking about Paul Pogba. I think we're all right. But Ollie's putting him on the left wing. You know, Deschamps ain't putting him on the left wing. I don't think if he went to Juventus, PSG or Real Madrid, they'd put him on the left wing because they'd probably have a CDM that, like a Matic or someone that can play with him. Ollie's putting him on that's the big thing for me. I don't want to pay 400 grand a week to put him on the left wing. If we're paying him 400 grand a week, I put him in the midfield.
Answer this question. Forget about all that, you know, about shoehorning him into the team. Let's say we had Ryan Giggs in his pomp. Would Pogba even be in the starting lineup then? Does that mean that he would drop one of the midfield players? Because if it does mean that, I would love to ask Ollie this question. Because if it does mean that, he should be doing that anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Well, he's definitely shoehorning him in. He did it at Anfield in January. Like, he played McFred and then he put him on the left wing and everyone was like, what are you doing? And you get these Pogba fans, and I'm a Pogba fan, but I ain't Pogba FC, I ain't doing that. And they're like, oh yeah, he's brilliant on the left wing. He's not.
Sorry, I said City before. It was Liverpool away where he played on the right wing. Liverpool away, Martial played on the left wing, and I saw the heat map. He didn't spend hardly any of the game more than 2 yards in front of Luke Shaw. Martial was there to stop Trent Alexander. Pogba was on the right to stop Robertson, and we drew 0-0, and we could have nicked it. So we should have nicked it. Pogba should have scored at the death, shouldn't he? And I think Bruno miss one or shoot at the keeper?
Yeah, they both did. Bruno and Pogba. I remember it.
Could easily nicked it. It actually did do the trick. It did do the trick. But that's with two players playing really defensive roles in the wide berths, which was Pogba and Martial that day. Pogba's a quality player. If you ask him to do a job on the left or the right, he's going to do it. But for me, you look at what he did in the Euros, and you look at what he can do, the goals he can score from the edge of the box, the Fulham goal he scored for us, the 50-yard balls, the through balls that Kovac was talking to Mbappe. They're from a position where you've got to be a centre midfielder. You know, they're like 40-yard balls, 50-yard balls. He's a centre midfielder, and if you're going to pay 400 grand a week, he's got to walk straight into his best position, not be put onto the left wing or the right wing. And I think you've nailed that. I think you've absolutely nailed that point. It's absolutely spot on. Just talking about Varane, I just saw somebody on Twitter say that Varane with Maguire would be absolutely fantastic, but it's got to be De Gea behind him. It would be like building a mansion on sand if Henderson takes the number 1 jersey. I'm not going to name the person out on Twitter for that, but Kovac, where do you sit on this? I mean, this is something that looks like it's not going to get resolved. It looks like we're going to go into another season with 2 very good goalkeepers, whichever side you pick, as far as I'm concerned, that's not good for goalkeepers. But where do you sit on that?
It's a bizarre one because I think it's really bizarre to say Henderson's going to make less mistakes, but De Gea's going to save you more often. And I think that's it's such a weird kind of way of putting it because De Gea is undoubtedly the better goal stopper. Henderson is somewhat more kind of astute and secure in not messing little things up that he should probably not be messing up. He's a very kind of secure, solid goalkeeper. Whereas De Gea is a bit more erratic. He will kind of throw random legs out into the middle of nowhere and kind of save things that he shouldn't. I think it's a bizarre one because I feel when De Gea is on, he is still one of the best keepers in the world. I think his ability to pull stuff out of thin air is bizarre. I think Henderson is the long-term option. I think realistically what's going to happen is we're going to keep both of them until De Gea decides it is now time to move on. And then Henderson will take up the kind of the number 1 position. I think it is going to be back and forth all season. My personal pick's De Gea, primarily because I think his high is a lot higher than Henderson's. And I think when you've got that back four now suddenly in front of them, I think we are going to be we're going to be facing a few more long shots. We're going to be facing stuff from the edge of the box a bit more. We're not going to be defending as many sort of scrappy scenarios, and it's usually in those scenarios where I feel Henderson is a bit more solid. He's better at catching. He's less likely to fumble. Whereas long shots, De Gea's the guy. So I think with the players that are coming in, if Varane does come in, I think De Gea just edges into number one for me.
It's interesting, Kev, because your man at Manchester Evening News who loves Henderson basically said this week Henderson's going to be the number one. But then again, Ollie can change his mind again. So you sort of stuck him. You don't know who number one is really, do you? But it is interesting because, you know, I'm Team De Gea, but I do like Henderson. But I almost ask myself, we're almost with Henderson. I mean, where do you sit on it? Because with Henderson, I feel we're almost being sold something that we've not actually. It's like being sold a car that you've not test drived. I think, you know, De Gea's a Ferrari, and you know, Henderson might be a Lamborghini, but I've driven that Ferrari. This Lamborghini you're talking about, I don't know what it drives like. And then I feel like we're being sold Henderson on very little evidence other than a good season at Sheffield United, because I felt he ended the season last year quite shaky, really. And even this week, he's come out and said that himself. He said, I worked so hard to get in the team. And then when I got in the team, I was so tired. And then I picked up an injury that it affected me. And this is a guy you're going to chuck into 75,000 fans against Leeds. I'm sure he seems to have the personality to hold it, but I'm still a little bit confused as to why we're shoving De Gea aside on a youngster. And he is a youngster as goalkeeping terms go. He's going to make mistakes, I think.
Well, I would say to me, David De Gea is the Lamborghini. I would say that Dean Henderson's a Fiat 500. Honestly, man. If we're comparing keepers, man, David De Gea has been at Manchester United. Honestly, the one thing I can say Dean Henderson's better at than David De Gea at Manchester United is purely communication. Maybe vocally he is better with the back line, and that might be because he's English. Communication skills might be better. He's a bit more vocal, barks orders out. Apart from that, David De Gea is better at shot stopping, better at coming for crosses. He fills me with more confidence. I think he's better with his feet, and the all-round better goalkeeper. I think we spoke about this the other week, and it's actually starting to kind of grate on me, this, because you get these stories of Dean Henderson saying, I want to be assured I'm the number one next season. Doesn't work like that, mate. You know, earn your stripes. Go out there and prove that if you think you're better than De Gea, then prove it. But for the minute, David De Gea, you know, and a lot of United fans have written him off, but he's still, if you're talking between the two of them, I mean, De Gea is all-round better goalkeeper than Dean Henderson. Listen, I was going to say it's not even a debate, but it is, because we'll all have our say on it. For me, David De Gea, all day long.
I'll tell you what I want to ask you about, Ricky, because it's something that puzzles me. I said at the start of last season, I didn't like this. I'd rather Ollie'd made a decision. If you didn't want De Gea, loan him out, put Henderson in goal, and back Henderson for the year. Because what I didn't like was that I think goalkeepers, and we had Ben Foster on the show a few weeks ago, and he said, I wouldn't have liked that situation. I don't want to look at the bench and see a goalkeeper that the keeper might think that the manager thinks as good as me. I want to look at the bench and see Joe Hart there. You know, I want to see someone that's never taken my spot. And I think that was the mistake last year. I think all the time the press were popping onto it as well. It looks like we're going to do that again. You know, regardless of which goalkeeper you go from, surely that's not a great situation. I don't know what you think is.
Yeah, I can see his point there about not really wanting that much pressure from the bench. You want a good backup, but you don't really want to be thinking you're under pressure for your place all the time. I think I agree with a lot of what Kev said as well. You know, De Gea's, I know he's dropped some boo-boos over the years. I can remember some blinders, the one at Arsenal that swerved a little bit. But, you know, he's been the keeper for a long time. And I feel as though I've seen Henderson make, you know, pro rata for the amount of games that he's played. I feel as though I've seen Henderson make a lot more mistakes than I've seen De Gea make. You know what I mean? Oh, you know, because he's done them in such a short space of time. I could probably name 10 real serious errors that I've seen De Gea make. But how long's he been playing for us? You know what I mean? I think I'd probably stick with De Gea.
I think, Mark, you've touched on a good point there. And the thing, Dean Henderson got this place in the team. He's not played in front of fans. You know, that is a different animal altogether. When you're at Old Trafford and things aren't going your way, and you're in front of the Stretford end, you know, if you've just made a mistake, you will hear people in the crowd questioning that. And we have not seen how Dean Henderson can respond to that. We've not seen how he responds to going to Anfield away, you know, Leeds United away, you know, these kind of big games, Man City or whatever. We've not seen him in the pressure cooker and how he deals with that. So for me, that's why De Gea gets the #1 spot for me. And I did say to you the other week as well, the thing with Dean Henderson is too emotionally involved, too pumped up. And didn't I say Joe Hart, #2? He's like Joe Hart, you know, when you just like, just settle down, mate. You know, you're in the team or whatever. You don't need to be beating your chest and, you know, going out as if it's some kind of battle or whatever. Just go and stop the ball going in the net. That's all you get paid to do.
And I think as well, you know, when you think about it, maybe this is look. I would rather we sold De Gea, took 40 million, and went with Henderson than keep both. And I want De Gea to be the keeper. But if Ollie, make a decision. You know, live by your decision. If you think Henderson's better than De Gea, sell De Gea then. And then, but what worries me is that situation happens where Henderson starts the season, makes a few mistakes, and Ollie goes, "Don't worry about it, Carricky. David's back in goal." So that's no good for Henderson either. Like, I just think, I mean, look, the reality is 2 years ago, we had Romero and De Gea. I think we had the best backup goalkeeper in the league and potentially the best goalkeeper. Yeah, he was making mistakes. That's what Romero's for. But he wasn't ever really going to take De Gea's spot. Now we've got ourselves into this situation where it's just a debate every week about two goalkeepers. Some people will like this one, some people like that one. And this is where the manager earns his money for me.
I would go as far as to say I would preferred to have De Gea #1. I've kept Romero as backup. Thought he's absolutely fantastic at United, very reliable, and
very rarely made a mistake as well.
Yeah,
Romero very rarely made a mistake,
and probably have left Henderson out on loan. But at the same time, you've got to applaud the fact that Dean Henderson was big enough to say, I'm coming back there and I want to challenge David De Gea. So, yeah, like you say, it's up to Solskjaer now to sort this out, really, because David De Gea's on a big contract, and will he get that kind of money anywhere else in the world? Who would take him now to pay a fee and pay, you know, and match the wages that he's on?
Well, that's because we've placed stupid wages. Just one final question. I just want to go around. Ricky, I'm very disappointed you're not actually wearing it, but what's your thoughts on the new kit?
I'm not big on new kits, mate. If they win games in it, I'll be over the moon with it. Put it that way.
No, just a bit of banter. I think me and Ricky, and maybe, well, I don't know, maybe all of us. I'll ask, but I'm certainly not into buying new kits. Kobo, what's your thought on the new kit?
One thing, I'll say this: I use TeamViewer for work on a regular basis, and then we suddenly received at work an email from them basically saying, "Okay, we need you to pay a lot of money." And this was about 6 weeks ago. This suddenly happened. And then 6 weeks later, it's unveiled as the kit sponsor for United. I sent it through to the group chat of all the other presenters, and they went, "Oh, I see what's happened here. I see what's happened. This is exactly why this happened." It's a bit throwback, isn't it? The kind of color scheme they've gone for. It's a bit sort of 60s, 70s sort of look to it. It's a kit, isn't it? At the end of the day, I'm not one for going out and buying new kits myself. Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. To be honest with you, if I could still have the old Vodafone kit, I'd still have the old Vodafone kit. That was the one for me. So,
Kev, you're a man of fashion. What's your thoughts on it?
2 words. Initial thoughts when I see it. 2 words. Dog shit. And I certainly won't be buying it because it would go against my thing of putting money in their pockets kind of thing. I'm sure there will come a day when my son will be saying he wants to buy it, which I will leave him to. I used to love like going to the mega store and buying it and, you know, and all that stuff as a kid myself, but times have changed. But I don't know. Listen, it could be a grower. If we win the league in it, you never know. Might change my mind.
I'd be quite keen to see the alternating versions of it. Is there going to be like a pink one of the same sort of design? Because that just looked horrendous.
Oh no, they'll have some mad away one, won't they?
Have leopard print. That's what I'm going for.
Much prefer retro kits. At my age, I like to get the older ones if I can, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, I quite like the tracksuit tops, but as you said, I normally buy a tracksuit top, and I do like it, but I ain't buying one because for the same reason. I feel that we made progress at the end of last season with the Glazers, and I think if you can make a print stand on anything, then you should do that. But look, really enjoyed the show. It's absolutely flown by. I hope you've enjoyed it, Kovu.
Yeah, it's been great fun, mate. I've really enjoyed it. Nice to meet you all properly as well. Obviously, I watch the shows quite regularly, so to actually have the conversation, it's been great. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Ricky. Nice you're off on your holidays as well, aren't you now?
I'm off to Tenerife for a week on Saturday morning. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to
that.
Thanks for having me, Mark. Good to meet you, Kovu. Enjoyed it.
Likewise, sir.
And Kev, you're not going on holiday. I can tell by your face. You're well pissed off of that.
I've had a look at the colour in me, man. Manchester's good enough for me at the minute.
Get out in the garden, get the old sun in on.
Yeah. And what I will do is Kovu. Where is he? Up here? No, up there. Debut. We've got to give him a debut rating, haven't we?
Oh wow, I'm in the mud here.
I'll give him 9 out of 10. I'll give him 9 out of 10.
Oh, that's a debut. I'd go with that as well, Ricky.
Well, I can't disagree with Ricky. He gets everything right.
The Godfather.
But hey, look, we've had a cracking show. We haven't had Sancho announced, so presumably tomorrow. Who knows with United? Maybe they're just going to let it run till next year. Who knows? You just don't know. But positive news on Varane. Really enjoyed the show. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll speak to you tomorrow.
Thanks a lot.